Roland, Jordan Blair,
Tim Baldwin.
Bank of Bozeman.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. What can you tell me and the general public about Bank of Bozeman?
Oh man. Well, it's kind of my job to talk about Bank of Bozeman,
Yeah.
but short and sweet is we're the only independent community bank based out of Bozeman. We just have one branch, so all of our decisions are made under one roof, and everything is geared towards how do we best benefit our community.
How does that work being that, a small single branch location? Is there a lot of difficulty? Is there more benefit?
Yeah, I'd say more to the benefit. With a large bank, when you're a part of a big conglomerate, whether your interests are spread, just across the entire state or region or nationally, you're reporting to somebody who's probably at an office that's not near yours. And so they don't understand your customers as good as we do. I share a wall with the bank president. So if I need to get something approved that's above my head, there's nobody higher than the guy that I share a wall with. And we're right down in the lobby. So kind of the benefit there is we make all of the decisions in-house. We get a little more flexible. We'll use whatever tool we can find, whether that's lending or deposits. If we've got somebody who has a project and maybe it doesn't fit our normal risk profile, we're going to go and search out other ways to do that. Whether that's an SBA 504 guarantee, Dakota Business Lending does a lot of help with that. Or if we're just going to try and find different structures, we're not going to get boxed in like a large bank would. And then, like I said, everything is just geared towards working within our community. So all of the lending is basically Wilsall down to Gardner, NS, Three Forks, that area. That's about as far out as we go. So if you're depositing your money, if you're a Bozeman local depositing your money, you know that 90 cents of every dollar is benefiting your community.
That's very cool. In the spirit of this podcast, I really try to pull in local businesses, and it's very weird because there's these big machines, be it banks, corporations, and sometimes it can make it so hard to compete with them. And I just wonder how that shows up does it?
Yeah. So I don't have the marketing budget of the large banks. So, brand recognition when I first got into my role was a big target. I needed to increase how many people just knew about Bank of Bozeman. 2 years ago, if I was out and about and I said, "Hey, I'm Jordan, I work for Bank of Bozeman," about 3 out of 10 people at least would say, "Where is that?" or "I've never heard of you guys." I very rarely get that anymore. That's just, I call it guerrilla marketing. You have to be creative. I don't have the money to just throw at every problem because we are small in one branch, and you're sitting there trying to think of every creative way to go about it. And so showing up to chamber events, Bozeman Chamber of Commerce, I do a lot of showing up to those events, just finding where the people are gathered, so that I can get to them. There's a gentleman here in the state, Flint Rasmussen, who says you got to go where the people are. And I like to live by that. So I can't just throw money at everything like the large banks. Our people get more hands-on. And so, somebody who's a teller at our bank is much more knowledgeable than somebody who's a teller at another bank because they have to be. They're doing more individual tasks and they're doing different things. So, I can't sit there and lower your interest rate automatically, but I can certainly find the avenues to get there. And because we're all more knowledgeable, we're gonna dive into every single issue and attack it on an individualized basis. And so where those big banks are really attractive to a big business, right? Like I can't touch a car dealership right now. They send a lot of wires, and I do not have the staff to send out that many wires every day. We do send wires, just not as many as a large bank. So yeah, like that does kind of preclude me from being able to service certain businesses as well as I'd like. And so I don't spend a lot of time trying to get their business because every single entity or individual that I try to bring in as a customer has to get that higher level of service.
What's the origin of Bank of Bozeman? How long do they go back?
Yeah, Bank of Bozeman has been around since 2005.
Okay.
So it started out, it was some local guys. wanted to start a bank, and so they got it rolling in 2005. Actually, Bank of Bozeman and I share a birthday, April 15th. It just celebrated its 21st. And so started out as just that one branch down by where Distinctive Lighting is now.
Yep.
So in that building, and then in 2011 moved into the current location, which was I believe Lowell Springer Architect Group was the architects on that. And so started out as just wanting to be the local bank. Our mission statement is to be the premier financial institution for small businesses and customers in town. And that started with that first group. The bank did go through some trouble in that 2008 crisis with a lot of other banks. And there was a bit of a shift in the leadership structure. And so we've had, I think, 4 bank presidents. Don't quote me on that, but I know of a few. And so the guy who preceded our current president did a really excellent job of getting the bank back on stable footing, to where it wasn't going to go under. And then our current president, Clinton Gerst, has done an excellent job of getting the bank to be profitable. And so we're not borrowing any money. We're completely funded by deposits. And we have an employee benefit program and a bonus program that wasn't there before. So, I mean, really started from that nitty-gritty small bank, has gone through every challenge that every other bank has gone through and come out on top.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, especially in 08 and not being a small bank, not having all that backing. It's cool that.
Yeah, no, not too big to fail. The government does not supply the funds to keep us going.
When you were talking about the tellers being much more capable, because I come from a farm background and I think of the small family farm where you basically do everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a niche and a specialist in everything where there is in much more of a corporate world because it's so big. So you have your specialists, your tellers, they're just tellers in every single department. So I can appreciate that when there's much more, when you're kind of seeing the big picture. And you're much more involved.
Yeah, we all wear many hats. And, I mean, for me, like I started out with Bank of Bozeman as a teller in 2023. And I've learned banking from the ground up. Makes me much more, able to speak on different aspects of banking. But it also makes me have a better appreciation for everybody in the bank. And it's also helpful when managing staff. They come to me, Jordan, I made this mistake. Well, buddy, I've made a worse mistake. You're okay. Let me tell you.
So you started at a teller, and then what's your official position right now?
Yeah, I'm the sales and service officer and assistant vice president at Bank of Bozeman. So I oversee our teller staff, new account staff, business development. I get to work with our marketing director, Jeannie, on quite a few projects, I should say. So always busy. I started there as a teller, and I had moved over here. My wife and I were living in Idaho at the time. So when we moved over here, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to get out of hotels. I was really tired of that 24/7, 365 schedule. And so I got into the bank and kind of just fell in love almost immediately with what we were doing there and what the mission was. So worked my way into the loan department. I was a loan processor for a little over a year. Worked on every type of loan we do, and that helped me learn how lending works. I didn't really have a good idea of how you do a loan before that. And so I got my education, right there, hands-on. And then after a little bit of over a year of doing that, we restructured the front end of the bank. So we had an operations person that oversaw all of the operations, our teller staff, our new account staff, and we didn't have anybody really doing the business development side. And so bank leadership said, hey, we're growing. We're at that time where we need to get more aggressive. So we restructured things and created the sales and service officer role. And they came to me and they said, hey, this seems like your kind of gig. I said, you're right.
So, I agree.
Getting to get out and talk to as many people as I can. Having a lot of self-determination over my day is nice.
Yeah. And to that, you were talking about the chamber, because you run our leads group and you're there. And I don't know, I see you at a lot of different business events. You're very, very out there and involved in the community.
Like Flint said, go where the people are.
The
chamber was kind of one of the first things I wanted to get involved with when I moved into this role. I had been living in town for right around 2 years at that point. Had some friends, but didn't have a huge social network. Didn't have a lot of people in Bozeman that I knew. But we've been members of the chamber since well before I was there, and so I'd gotten to see a little bit of it. And so first thing I did was start looking at the networking groups on the chamber website. And I looked through a couple of them, and they already had bankers and their non-compete groups, so those weren't options. And then I saw the Wednesday morning one, and that was like the biggest group in the whole options. And there wasn't a banker in there, so I said, "Perfect, that's the one." Carrie, shout out Carrie, she got me in there.
Nice.
Yeah, great group of people. I actually have to say that's the group. The Wednesday morning networking group has been a huge help to me, just in terms of learning, and making me feel like I belong in Bozeman. There was actually, I was looking at a picture in my office before I came over here. It's from the 40th anniversary party at Distinctive Lighting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Bill Fiedler, our friend there, big old picture of a decent amount of the group. And I had a big old smile on my face. And I remember going home to my wife after that party. And I looked at her and I go, "I think I made it." She goes, "What?" And I said, "I think we belong here." I said, "Look at this. These are my people." It was nice to kind of get that almost euphoric feeling of hey, this is where you're supposed to be at. This is what you're supposed to be doing.
Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show. This sense of community, I don't think can be overstated how important that is in business and life.
Yeah, and we got a good here, man. We got a good chamber. We've got a great community that wants to do that.
So when you think of your job, did you guys kind of design a strategy of how you're going to approach going where the people are?
No. This is the fun part, right?
Yeah.
So, we're the one branch bank. We get to do things a little bit differently than everybody else. I think it took leadership maybe 3 months to design the position and get it approved through the board and get it going. That's, a couple of years process somewhere else. But, they really wanted to have somebody that was focused on serving our customers and also doing the business development side of that. And so, as I like to say, I'm out here talking to people about Bank of Bozeman and what we can do for you. I'm also the guy on the back end who's responsible for making sure you're getting that service I'm presenting to you. So, we wanted that built-in accountability, but we also needed to let this person be flexible. And so with me, I'm kind of out there. I like to get out. I like to do things differently, and I've got a lot of energy, and so it's perfect. I can't get bogged down on any one thing for too long because I've got other things going on.
Yeah.
I've got to be responsible for what's going on inside the lobby and my staff, the tellers and the new accounts team, making sure that they're supported so that they can deliver that service. But then I got to go out and find the business so we can pay the bills. Yeah. So I think very much so when leadership designed the sales and service officer role, they wanted somebody who was going to kind of be a self-motivated go-getter. And so I spend days driving around town and I will just look at a business and go, yeah, that's a good local business. I might go and sit in and have a cup of coffee or order lunch or just try to kind of observe for a bit. But a lot of it is I just walk in the door. I'm Jordan. I'm with Bank of Bozeman. I would love to be your banker.
And then are you actually directly managing some of the tellers and stuff?
Yeah. So the teller department and the new accounts department report up to me. That encompasses what we call the service department. So that's the service side of the sales and service officer. So I have a teller supervisor, Elise, who I trust to run the teller line throughout the day. My new account staff's pretty self-sufficient. There's just the two of them right now, Justin and Nathan. So yeah, I mean, I just had to kind of build the structure to make sure they were supported. I check in with them every morning. I usually stop in the office. I'm in there for at least the first 3 hours of the day most of the time. And then I try and get out there and do some business development.
So you're out here talking to everyone in the community, and then you're kind of keeping checks and balances of, hey, like, let's let's make sure what I'm promising is being delivered.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't be a BS salesman. It all has to be authentic. So I have to make sure that that's actually happening on the back end.
Does the Bank of Bozeman ever want to have a second branch or location?
Yes. Yes, we do. We are working towards that actively.
Nice.
Um, my hope is that in the next 4 years, we're either breaking ground on a branch in Belgrade or purchasing a building and throwing ourselves in there.
Nice. So is Belgrade the next target area?
Yeah, Belgrade's definitely the next target area. We've got a lot of customers out here, and they love us and we love them. The comment we always hear out of them is, "You guys are great, but we need a branch that's closer."
Yeah.
And it is the 21st century, and so I've got customers in India. Was just talking to a gentleman recently who's living in Thailand part of the year. I've got customers in France, Morocco, but those are all people who started with us in Bozeman as customers living here. They've since moved to other areas, and they just like the service so much that they decide to keep it going.
That's what I was going to ask you is how do
Yeah.
you get customers out of the country?
Yeah,
They're generally
they
here.
they start yeah they
Yep.
they start here. We don't really open any accounts for anybody who's not in Bozeman.
Yep.
We have to see your face. We have to know that you're a real person.
And then you can be either a business or individual.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
Bozeman.
Yeah. With businesses, you just got to be registered in the state of Montana, to do those regulations. But yeah, everything starts out locally, and then we strive to deliver the best service. And we found that we're actually really good at that because of the structure that we've built in. And that's why we've got customers who lived here in Bozeman or moved here from somewhere else for a while, and then they've since left and they still want to keep banking with us. So, I mean, the 21st century is really handy for that. Online banking's great. The app's super handy. I have all my money at Bank of Bozeman. I like the customer side of it. But it's got to start in person, and all of our customers in Belgrade would love to have a branch closer to them. So that's where we're headed.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, like this whole area right around us is blowing up.
Yeah.
So-
No, I'm sure you just hear construction all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of right in the middle of it. So, yeah. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys have like a specific spot over here? Anything you got a target on yet, or no?
Not a specific spot. I have something I'd like to do. I can't really say that because there's somebody already in that building, but there's one spot in Belgrade that I am looking at that I would love to have my hands on.
Right on. So that's
kind of right.
TBD down the road.
Down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
TBD. I mean, we could throw down our own branch. There's obviously plenty of plots of land out here. We could build a new branch and let that, be the same unique feeling that we have at our current branch. But there's a piece of real estate in Belgrade that I would love.
And you guys have mobile app, everything's online.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a mobile app. I've got a remote check scanner. So I've got some of my clients here in Belgrade. They've got their remote check scanner. They can scan the checks in right there. It's actually the same type of scanner that the tellers are using at the teller line at the bank. And so that ties in. There's a software program that our tech supplier basically helps the customer get onto their computer, help with the login process and whatnot, getting them set up. And then they can actually scan. I've got some customers that scan like 200 checks a day. And so they'll scan all those in. Those get directly deposited into their account. They got to hold on to the checks for 90 days, just like we do. But then after that, they can shred them, burn them, however they want to dispose of them. But then, yeah, they can handle all of their banking without having to physically come to the branch.
I think I started my company in 2020, and I think 2025 was the first check I ever took.
Good on you.
That's just kind of the world we live in.
Yeah,
we have a payment processor, so it just generally we don't do it because we need to take a card and hold it on file anyway.
Yeah.
We tell people if you want to write a check, you can. So that was the one-off. Took 5 years.
A lot of businesses are moving away from checks, and if you want my 2 cents on the matter, keep doing that. Get away from checks. Checks can be slow. I'm sure that part of the reason for wanting a card on file is you don't want to deal with a bounce check.
Yeah.
And they can get snagged in the system. There is a whole system behind how checks are processed. And it's gotten more advanced as time has gone on. I will say, to the credit of the federal government, they intentionally wanted some more innovation in that process. It still is flawed. you can have a check bounce a week later, you know? And
Yeah.
so if I write you a check for $500 right now for, food for an event, you're going to go out and spend that $500. And then a week later, your bank comes to you and says, hey, that check bounced. You're our customer. They're not. So you got to figure that out, pal.
So I was just telling you before this about some check fraud or some fraud. I'll give you the
Lay it on me.
exact situation, and I'll even use exact numbers to the best of my knowledge. So we had someone reach out about quite a bit of work, and they were from Dubai, and that's not uncommon for us to do business with people from
Sure.
Dubai. I was just in Vegas a few months ago, and there were some affiliate companies, meaning like the same type of company that we are, but they do business in Dubai, and you just network and exchange cards, yada yada. So this guy reached out, wanted a pretty considerable amount of work. It's like 6 days of work, all day, hourly service. The total line item was over $25,000. Give him the quote. Yeah, that sounds great. What's the process? Here's the deposit. It's 50% deposit. Give him all the terms. Says, hey, since we're out of the country, we'd like to send an ACH. And we kind of had like some yellow flags up just with the way the communication was.
Sure.
We're like, okay, we'll just give them an account number that has nothing in it, so nothing can be drawn out of it. Give them the account number. Okay, great. Everything's set up. And then an email a couple of days later, hey, we issued the money, but we accidentally gave you way too much in your favor. So we gave you $72,000.
Right.
And then he says, if you can just, send the difference back to us here. But this is where it got interesting for me. So we're like, okay, we waited, and then we kept getting the email like, can you do it quick, like today, tomorrow? The weird thing was when I called the bank, somebody came here locally and deposited a check. So that's what I said. They said, oh yeah, they came into the First Security Bank. They came into the branch on 19th. They're like, yeah, they deposited a check. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. That it was like somebody walked into the branch.
Walked in from this businessman in Dubai.
So anyway, the check ultimately bounced or came back fraudulent. We just closed the account because we obviously never sent the money over. But like, I guess if you weren't a little aware of that and had no idea, that would suck. And I really want to know who it was. And they're essentially what they said, well, unless you file a police report.
Yeah.
So I just called the sheriffs, and they're like, well, since there was not really a crime because they didn't take any money, they may or may not give us the footage. And I'm like, well, look, here's the exact time the check was deposited. Here's the teller's name. I haven't heard anything back, but I'm so curious to know who here locally would do something like that.
There's actually like gangs that get involved in this. Yeah. We're going to get into some interesting stuff. So, part of being in banking is you got to be aware and you got to be up to date on the newest scams. So we have regular trainings that we're doing weekly, monthly, yearly, constantly trying to keep up on that stuff. The sad fact of it is that right now with fraud, there's just not a lot of people getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
And I would push back on that assertion that a crime didn't occur when somebody deposited a check physically into your account that was fraudulent. That's check fraud.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
So if I really wanted, my thought was, as a business owner here locally, there's lots of business owners and just people here. If somebody here locally is doing this, I'm obviously not the only person that could.
Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I want the picture of this person. As a mutual friend of ours, Bob, who I told you, he was recently with First Security, and he was saying sometimes what they call them is a mule. So this guy is in Dubai or who knows where, but they'll find someone here locally.
Yeah.
So you go deposit the check, we'll give you a percentage if it goes through. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a little bit more sophisticated than one of the ones that I heard from the Bozeman Police Department, where basically there was a group, and I don't really know if they were stationed in Montana, but they were hitting several banks in Montana, and so basically they would go in and pick up a person experiencing homeless, somebody who's just kind of hanging out on the street, appearing to be vagrant, and do you have ID? Yes, cool. They load them up into their van. They've got a printer and a computer in the van, and they take a copy of their ID, match the name up, and they print a check with that person's name on it. And it's basically a fake check that's meant to mirror a real check from somebody's account that they've somehow gotten their hands on. They'll print a check off, typing that person's name on there, send them into the branch to cash the check. The person gets the cash, walks down the road, gets picked up by this group in a van. They give them $100. They take the rest and they're gone.
So why would the bank cash this check if this person doesn't have an account there?
So there's transit checks, not us checks. So if you have a account at Bank of Bozeman and somebody writes you a check off of First Security or First Interstate, you bring that check to the bank. If you have the funds in your account to cover that, we'll cash it for you right then and there.
Yeah.
If it's more than what you have on hand, 9 times out of 10, if you need the money immediately, I'll just call the other bank, verify the funds, and get you rolling. So that's how it works if you are a customer. If you're not a customer, let's say you did some lawn work for somebody, they wrote you a check, they're a Bank of Bozeman customer. You can bring that check to Bank of Bozeman to cash it. You show us your ID, we verify that that's who it is. We do have to have you sign the back of the check, put your phone number on it, and then we have to run you through a database called OFAC, OFAC, and that's the Office of Foreign Asset Control. And so we're basically making sure that you're not financing terrorism. And then once we're sure of that, if it's not an unusual check, we'll probably just cash it and move on. If it is unusual for that client that wrote you the check, we'll call the client. So how? Just depends on what the activity level is. I mean, it'd be impossible for any bank to 100% monitor all of their customers' accounts.
Yeah.
And at the same time, what we're constantly fed from the customer side is more convenience, more convenience, more convenience. So while we, knocking on wood, haven't had any major issues recently, that's just one of the things that you see running around. And so, a teller at a large bank that's running through a bunch of transactions per day, they're going to get this check. It looks legit. I mean, it looks exactly like it should. Probably, snagged a check out of the mail and just copied that format. And then, if it's $500, if the teller's been running through multiple thousands of dollars with other transactions, they probably weren't tipped off at that point. Yeah, went ahead and cashed it.
Is there a limit? Because I remember you were talking about this a while ago.
Yeah.
Is like the $10,000 cash withdrawal
CTR
that you don't need to tell anyone what it's for?
Yes. So here's the regulators are going to love this one. So a CTR, a currency transaction report, it's basically the federal government keeping tabs on actual currency. That's your dollar bills, your coins and such. And so post 2000 or post 9/11, I should say, they came out with the Patriot Act, the Bank Secrecy Act, and a litany of other regulations that were all geared towards preventing American citizens from financing terrorism, or at least trying to cut down on terrorism financing happening within American institutions. And so what the CTR is designed to do is basically if you withdraw or deposit more than $10,000 in cash in any one day at any one bank, even if it's different branches, then we are obligated to fill out a report on that. And so that's got your information, and that's part of why you're supposed to give so much, you have to give so much information when opening an account, is to have that on hand. But there's a question in there that banks are legally obligated to ask, and that is, what is this money for, or where did you get this from? We're legally obligated to ask. We have to do that. What you answer is not my business. If you say none of your business, that's what I'm going to put down. It's your money. Unless you're giving me other reasons to where I should be cluing in, hey, maybe this person is involved in some sort of criminal activity, I'm probably just going to be inclined to take that's none of my business and move you along. I've got some customers that are longstanding that we know very well. And I get an idea as to what they're up to. Sometimes they're very forthcoming. Sometimes they're very excited about what they're doing. And yeah, I'm pulling out $15,000. I'm going to go buy a boat. Heck yeah, man. Congrats.
Nice. Yeah.
Other times it's, I'm depositing $10,000 and that's none of your business. And I'm going to go ahead and write that down. No, I do want to put a little disclaimer there. If you start telling your banker, none of your business, I'm not going to do anything, but I can't guarantee your other bank's not going to do something. They might look into that more and be keeping an eye on you. And that's not to say that other banks don't trust you, just that they've got larger risk profiles.
And when somebody comes in with this check, maybe it's a fraudulent check, maybe it's not. Is there a number, say in your guys' bank or commonly, where it's 10,000 or 15,000? Is there a number that
it's a confidential thing, but it's much lower than that.
Well, that's what was so interesting because, and I don't know, I'm just genuinely curious about this interaction.
Yeah.
It was $72,000,
Yeah.
something change, deposited into my account, and the weird thing is they said, hey, what's your account number so we can send you an ACH, and then they took that information and then went and made a deposit.
Yeah. Well, so the thing about ACHs, and this is why I kind of like them a little bit more, is, I mean, you have to initiate that with your other bank.
Yeah.
There's a little more verification that goes into it just from bank to bank. And then the thing with ACHs is if you send one and the information is not right, and I just had this earlier today, actually, we received an ACH from the IRS. It was somebody's tax refund. The information that was transmitted was actually incorrect, as in we didn't have all the numbers needed, but because we're a smaller bank and we know our people, I checked the name on the transaction. I said, I know that gentleman. So I pulled up his accounts and I took what numbers we had and I was able to match those up with the actual account numbers that exist. And so we went ahead and changed the information as needed and got the money into their account. For this instance, and this is, again, why I like ACHs, if we didn't have the info, we'd just send it back to the IRS. We'd be like, that's not correct. Try again. With this, asking for your account number, claiming they're going to do an ACH, and then doing the check deposit, obviously we know this was fraud. Obviously this was, meant to be criminal activity. They told you ACH because it's, it's quicker. It's the way a lot of businesses are doing it, especially in your line of work, where you're doing the transportation thing. ACHs and cards are so much more convenient for what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure that's what they said. And then, they're not going to tell you that they're sending their local mule in there with this check, because the hope is that you're not paying as much attention. You're just going to see this 72,000 sitting in your account. And when they send those repeat emails, that urgent, can you get that to me today? That's meant to get you off balance. That's actually like psychology at work. And so, yeah, their honest to God hope was that you were just going to send them an ACH for the difference. And that they'd then be the beneficiary of, you said 72,000. So what, like $60,000 that they would have gotten. And then you're on the hook for that. Right. And that's not as fun.
Yeah. Then I'm out like 50 plus grand. And then am I just out that money? Like, is my...
Yeah. So, according to the federal government, businesses are not people and therefore do not have rights. So like even your debit card disputes are...
Tell that to the mule.
Yeah, right.
The mule does not,
the mule does not care.
The mountain mule.
Yeah.
I want to hear that. The mountain mule's a person.
The mountain mule is a person. Small businesses are only run by people.
Yeah.
And those are my clients, is the small businesses. And so as much as the federal government might say they're not people, I know they are. And that's why we like to take a little extra care of those guys. Cause it's like, man, if you're out $60,000, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, and you're not IMB. You can't just, or IBM, you can't just throw a check my way and say, yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah. I was like, this would be cool if this stays in here. This looks nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it feels good at first.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I have this like really high account balance I'm not used to.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, the other bank comes back and they're like, no, that money doesn't exist. And then your bank's staring at you like, hey, we need to be made whole. It's not our money.
I feel like we've got, if I'm a detective, like there's so much here, because then they gave me, the new account number and the new routing number.
You have an amazing amount of information.
And the video footage.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Come on.
Yeah, I obviously am not there, but from what it sounds like to me, you've got more than enough, especially with somebody coming in person.
Yeah.
We have had it a couple years back. We had somebody who stole a checkbook from one of our customers who had misplaced that and did not inform us, which is, it's okay. But they didn't inform us that they had misplaced their checkbook. And this gentleman was writing themselves checks for RV repairs off of this client's checkbook. And it was pretty small checks to start. And they seemed pretty, everything seemed legit. They've got memos and all the things. But it only took 3 of those checks before one of us called the customer and said, hey, we've got this guy coming and cashing these checks. Is that you? no, that's not legit. Okay, great. We'll stop doing that. So, we gave that guy's picture to the Bozeman PD. We've got cameras right there. By the way, if you think you're going to rob Bank of Bozeman, I wouldn't try it. We've got cameras everywhere. We get really high def pictures. And so, yeah, we gave this guy's picture to Bozeman PD, and they knew exactly who he was. He had a warrant already.
Nice.
Yeah. So, with them having the camera footage, you've got a check. Was the check written? Was it handwritten?
No, it was printed.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you've still got enough there. I would say somebody ought to get caught for that.
And then there's the account number and the routing number where they asked me to
So
send
they asked you to
50,000.
send it to another bank, and they gave you all that info.
Yeah.
Presumably, that information has to be correct.
I mean,
because
because it would have to
money?
go somewhere.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, you're going to be able to, I don't know how much you can bury stuff, but that's going to link to something.
Oh, that's
somewhere.
certainly somebody's on the hook for that right there. So that's got to be legit, at least enough to hold somebody responsible.
Yeah, and I was a little bit taken back in this size community that somebody would walk into the bank on camera. But I don't know, kind of back to what you said, who knows what kind of gangs are around here. There's obviously a little bit of a homeless population, so we don't know who or what, who got.
Yeah. And there's these gangs they come up with all sorts of different stuff. There was one that went on last summer where this group of people was doing jackpotting scams or hitting ATMs. And so it's different how they do it every time. Sometimes they literally will just go one night, cut the bolts on an ATM door, and then come back the next night with some chains and some cars and like pull the front of the ATM off. Like it's, like they're Dominic Toretto and Fast and Furious. Other times it's a little less sophisticated, and they can just kind of plug into a hard drive and trick the system into feeding them money. And so there was a group that was doing that in Billings and just kind of working their way across the state. And they tried to hit our ATM.
Oh, really?
They did. We have some pretty good footage of it. Yeah. They tried. They were not successful. We had our stuff locked down pretty good, and the alarm is very loud. And where we sit right there, we're next to Rose Hours and Texas Roadhouse and stuff. So when that alarm starts going off, it's loud and gets attention. So they did not get in. And then we did some further security upgrades from that, but they had worked their way from Billings over to Bozeman and had started hitting some places in Missoula. I don't know what the resolution to that was in that particular group, but it sounded like State Patrol was pretty invested in trying to find them.
So they're essentially jacking ATMs, though.
Yeah. So I mean, a couple $1,000s, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the ATM.
Yeah, I guess like depending on the day of the week and when they're.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of security concerns there, so you should always be monitoring like how much you're leaving in the ATMs, and that's an active process. But it's never less than 1,000.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
There's the other one going around that we've seen emails for a handful of times is, hey, we've got a group coming in next week. They need transportation, and then you could kind of tell right away. They're like, there's a photographer coming. Is there any chance you can pay the photographer?
Oh,
and it's like,
gosh, yeah.
I don't know what that turns into if you keep going down, but we just don't respond at that point because we've seen it 5 or 6 times now, and it's kind of the exact same.
If it feels unusual, it probably is.
Yeah.
It's probably weird, for somebody to reach out to you and ask you to pay one of their people or anything like that's usually off. I'd always caution people if somebody's expressing like some sense of urgency to you, press against that. If they're like, this has to happen now.
Yeah.
It's probably not legit. The IRS is never going to ask you to pay your taxes in gift cards. That's never going to be it. But yeah, that urgency or, exactly, oh, we oversent you money. No, you didn't. Who does that?
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I always just send an extra $60,000 to people.
Yeah.
My bad.
I was optimistic in the beginning. I'm like, hey, this would be a great job, lots of work.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to chase your customers away. So you're like, okay, what's the balance here?
You don't want to kill the whale, right?
Yeah.
if they're coming to you and they've got the kind of money to just throw $60,000 at you willy nilly, you certainly don't want to run away from that. But hey, you got to be cautious. 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be legit.
Yeah, that was my thought. Well, if we give them an account, which we have now since closed, that has no funds in it, so there's no way anything can be drawn out of it. We should be in a safe spot, and we were, but it was Anyway, it was interesting.
No, it sounds like you had the perfect time to kind of experiment. If you didn't have anything else going through that account, it's pretty low risk.
I'm so curious though. I don't know if I should. Mountain Mule sign now.
Mountain Mule is still operational despite the sign.
We'll leave it like that. I'm very curious if I should still press the sheriffs and keep going with that.
I mean, I'd encourage you to.
Yeah.
I can tell you if I was sitting in that bank, I'd probably be inclined to follow up with it just because somebody walked into the branch physically. Yeah. So whether they're actually a Bozeman or a Gallatin Valley resident or not, they're clearly comfortable operating within this area. And so, yeah, I'd prefer that they're caught and dealt with.
Who do I press, the bank or the sheriffs?
Well, it sounds like the bank's been pretty cooperative with you.
Yeah.
They've, hats off to them for giving you all that information. I would probably press with the sheriff if you've already called them. Do you have the video footage? Did you get access to that?
I don't know if they would give it to me or not.
I don't know if they'd give it to you, but they should certainly give that to the sheriffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I've dealt with it in the past where whenever we've gotten the police involved, we've been pretty cooperative with that video footage.
Yeah. I'd imagine it'd just be useful for the community and anyone to know,
absolutely.
Like, hey, if you see this guy, probably don't go into business with him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's somebody who's willing to pull off $60,000 worth of fraud is not the kind of person any of us should be associated with.
Yeah. Anyway, well, TBD if anything.
Absolutely.
If anything comes out of it.
What comes of that.
Anyway, so like beyond Bank of Bozeman and you, what's your? I think I know because you got a little bit of a football background.
Yeah. Man, football was big. Football was a big part of me growing up. Basically, since the time I put on a fake Denver Broncos helmet when I was like 4 years old, I fell in love with it. Played tackle football from the time that I was 7, which some parents might have some thoughts on that, but I thought it was fun. But yeah, I played football growing up. Spent most of my summers in high school traveling the country, going to camps. I mean, going into my junior year of high school, I left our team camp in Gunnison, Colorado. We had just finished up at noon after 3 days of full contact camp. I was on a plane at 1 o'clock the next morning to Florida, did a camp at the University of Florida, flew from there to Arizona, got back from Arizona to Colorado, flew to Ohio, went back to Colorado to go to a camp in Denver, went to Wyoming. That's what I really thought I was going to do with my life for a long time was football. And even after my playing career ended, I got to college and very quickly decided that I had lost my love for the game, which was kind of awful.
Yeah.
Was not fun. That's what started a season of my life that I like to call spinning wheels. Where, I just had lost a little bit of my identity when I wasn't playing, and I coached for a while, and then was spinning my wheels, doing a bunch of BS jobs and not really having a direction in life. And then the grand plan from there was I was gonna be a bartender and move to Jacksonville, Florida. Yep. Had a bank account titled Florida. And then Miss Hannah came back into my life. My wife, Hannah, and I have known each other since 5th grade. We went to high school on opposite ends of the Grand Valley in Colorado. And so then we started hanging out again. And it's that thing that happens with most men when you find that woman that you're supposed to be with. It was like that instant internal motivation returned. That drive that had been there with football and everything else, that was back. And I was ready to conquer the world. So said, all right, let's get serious. Let's start developing some skills. So I got out of bartending. I was driving box truck in Colorado for a while.
What were you hauling?
Appliances, custom doors and windows. It was a really fun job for a bit. I was all over the mountains of Colorado. I mean, I'd be in Crested Butte or Telluride or Ouray or up in the middle of nowhere in Tin Cup, if anybody knows where that is in Colorado. And I'd be delivering, a big old 40 by 10 window to some guy's hunting cabin. So you got to drive the box truck that's 30 feet through a roundabout of aspens and kind of bob and weave. And then you got to transition to carrying this big old heavy window into somebody's cabin, and you can't break that. And that was really fun and hard work, and it was good. And then it wasn't safe. There were some guys, it's Colorado, and they thought that meant they could bring marijuana on the truck. Not when I'm driving, because random DOT checks.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, boss, I'm out of here on that. And so that's when I got into hotels, was after I left that job. And I started out in hotels working nights in downtown Grand Junction, Colorado, which is known for having a bit of a meth problem. So that was a very educational experience on conflict resolution and nonviolent manners, how to use my brain in words to get irrational people to leave. And that was good. And it was a great schedule because I was working nights, which meant all day I could just go do whatever I wanted so long as I got my sleep. And then Hannah went to Idaho. She was finishing her second year of grad school to become an athletic trainer. And so the university in Grand Junction did not have the enough spaces for everybody to get their clinical hours. So they shipped her up to the University of Idaho. She worked for the football team up there. And I had transitioned to days at that point and was really starting to enjoy talking with customers during the day and getting to build connections with our regular customers. And then I had an offer on the table to become a manager there, but Hannah just got an offer in Idaho. And so I told him no. I said, I got to move to Idaho. Hannah and I got married, moved up to Idaho. First day that I walked into the Fairfield Inn and Suites in Moscow, Idaho, they were like, hey, you've got a lot of experience. Would you like to be the sales manager and front desk manager? I said, absolutely. And it was like this whole moment of like, oh man, I'm doing what God wants me to do. I'm right where he needs me to be. Things are opening up. And I hated it. I mean, Moscow's a great place and there's wonderful people there, but 24/7, 365, and all of a sudden everything is on me. You know, I could work 11 hours and then get called at 3:00 in the morning. Hey, computers aren't working. Guest is locked out, blah, 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 whatever. You're the manager. It's your job. You know, you understand that as a business owner, everything kind of rolls up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of just at my wit's end with hospitality. Had kind of given up on the idea of working up into the corporate end of things and doing quality assurance, which like quality assurance and hospitality is pretty cool. They just fly around the country and make sure the hotels are doing what they're supposed to do, which sounds kind of fun. So I was looking at Idaho Central Credit Union and thinking maybe I'd go apply there. And then Hannah got a job offer at Montana State with the football team. Yeah. So we came over here for her interview in November of 22. There was 3 inches of ice on everything. And I was very much questioning if we should be coming over here. But she walked out of the Bobcat Athletic Complex just beaming, so happy. And so I knew, I was like, yeah, that probably went pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably moving. We had only been in Idaho for like 6 months at that point. So, you know, just kind of started throwing in job applications everywhere I could. I had an offer at Valley Glass. I was going to be driving box truck up to Big Sky every day. And then the offer for Bank of Bozeman came through. And so I was just kind of sitting with those two. I had gotten some other opportunities that weren't as exciting to me. But I was looking to get into something that I thought I would either A, be developing some skills that I could use long term, or B, something that was going to get me going again, you know, because having a job's cool.
Yeah.
Making income's nice, but having something that like you're striving for, having goals is really where I wanted to be at. And I'm a big fan of intentional people. And so the job offer comes from Bank of Bozeman. And I'm sitting there with the wife. We're praying on it. We're thinking on it. And she looks at me and she goes, you know, it gets pretty snowy there. And I said, well, yes, but we've lived in Colorado and Idaho. I'm not exactly scared of the snow. She goes, right, but you'd be driving up to Big Sky every day.
Smart.
I said, all right, I'll take the lower pay. I'll go into this banking thing, see if that works. And like I said, I mean, I just fell in love with community banking because, I mean, I think the big banks deserve the reputation they got, especially after 2008, right? Everybody's got a story that they could tell about one of those big banks. But being in a community bank where A, we weren't responsible for the 2008 housing crisis, and B, we get to do the same thing those guys do, but with a much better intentionality behind it, with a local focus. I mean, that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is your wife still does she still work?
Yeah. So she's transitioned from the football team. She's now the athletic trainer for the women's basketball team and the Spirit Squad at Montana State. So I'm at almost all of the women's home games.
Nice.
They're a great group.
So how big a Bobcat fan are you?
I'm a huge Bobcat fan. I might even be in line for like a tattoo or something here.
Oh,
soon.
really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at all the athletic events. If there's an event over at the stadium, I try to be there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
They're fun. The Spirit of
the West marching band, dude.
Yeah.
They're insane.
It's so like this whole town when there's a Bobcat football game is a different place.
It is, yeah. I mean, the SEC's got scale, but the Big Sky's got intensity to match it, man. And especially when it comes to Montana, I think not having the professional sports is like super good for that.
Yeah,
because the whole town buys in. I don't think you could go anywhere in Bozeman and not see a Bobcat logo at some point or some sort of Bobcat themed thing. Like if you go to Spectators or the Poorhouse, my favorite thing to eat at both places is the Bobcat burger. Those are not the same burger.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
they're both the Bobcat burger.
Yeah. But it's like it's the one thing that the whole community can just come together.
Absolutely.
So it's very fun.
Absolutely. And I think it's kind of fun too. You know, we have the Cat Grizz rivalry, and that can feel really animositous until you're talking to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, I go to a tailgate every week for the football games. Got some friends over there. And every year for Cat Grizz when it's in town, we've got this guy from Billings who's a UM alum, and that's the one week he shows up, and he's the nicest guy in the world. Cooks Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that is it's all talk, but nobody's
is
hostile about it.
It's still Montana, man. I mean, I think we still have that good community feel, no matter where you're at, and I think the Cat Grizz thing is just really fun to jab each other about.
Yeah, because what else is there to do? I mean, there's
depends on who you are. Yeah, I mean, I was golfing yesterday.
Somebody said that to me a couple of days ago. They were golfing.
Yeah, it was snow golf's fun.
Hey, who was that? Oh, I think it was my brother-in-law said he was on Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, the weather was good.
Did you go to the game in Nashville or no?
No, I did not make it to the game in Nashville. We were talking about it, but that's like right when basketball season's heating up, and so there's going to be a lot of travel in a short period of time.
And do you and your wife have kids or no?
Not yet. We'll get to that in a couple of years. We've got a dog right now. His name's Trout. He's a blue heeler. He's the most expressive boy I've ever met.
I wonder where he gets that from.
I wonder. He's fun.
Anyway, anything else anyone should know about you or Bank of Bozeman?
Nobody cares more about your definition of success than we do.
I like it.
Yeah. Banking's banking. I'm never going to reinvent the wheel when it comes to banking. I can do things differently. I can tap into as many resources as I want, and I can get creative, right? And so I'm not limited by our size. I'm not limited by our money necessarily in terms of I can find an SBA 504 loan, or if your relationship's too big for me to handle, I can find another bank to participate alone. But what's different, what sets us apart, and what I think sets me apart from a lot of other bankers is that what I define success is how you define success. So if your definition of success is getting your business into a bigger shop that's going to facilitate all that you're doing, and you want to get that done in the next year, I define success by getting that done in the next 6 months. You know, if we beat your year, then great. But if we beat it, that's better.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming. I know we had our celebration for 100 episodes, and as soon as I saw you coming, I said to my fiance, I'm like, Jordan's coming. He's always fun. So
thank you.
I'm going to say for you, if anyone sees you anywhere, they should say hi to you, because every time I see you in an event, you're always bringing good energy. And,
I appreciate that.
You just got a memorable presence, and so
thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing, and it's cool that you're advocating for community business and community members. So.
Well, I mean, we've got the best of all of it here in Bozeman. We've got such great people, and I just love being of service to them. And thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, sir. Good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.